Every woman reaches a crossroads where she grows weary of pursuing what refuses to be captured. A defining instant when she questions herself. What if genuine allure isn't found in my actions, but in what I cease doing? In this discussion, I wish to address you, woman, who no longer desires to persuade or overcome, who stands ready to abandon forced connections and start summoning attractions simply through existence, who seeks to transform from the one who persists into the one who ignites from within. Because authentic magnetism cannot be pleaded for. It emerges from tranquility, from emotional intelligence, and from the peaceful mastery of a woman who understands her identity and the energy she radiates to the world. Stoicism, that timeless philosophy many consider emotionless, contains one of the most potent secrets of feminine allure, self-discipline as the ultimate expression of strength. As Seneca declared, conquering oneself represents the supreme power of all. And when that conquest becomes emotional expression, a composed look, the perfect words, transformation occurs. Your aura begins communicating before you utter a sound. Carl Jung noted in Man and His Symbols that the masculine psyche naturally gravitates toward the feminine archetype symbolizing enigma, instinct, and emotional force. Simply put, when a woman embodies presence, she transforms into a symbol. And symbols aren't clarified, they are experienced. Men don't fall for merely a form. They fall for what they experience when a woman gazes at them, as though she perceives something others cannot. This cannot be manufactured. It originates from your self-discipline, your purpose, and your quiet emotional strategy. Therefore today we'll discuss something more profound and seductive language. We'll examine the craft of inspiring desire without pursuing it, of touching a man's pride without praising it, of becoming a subtle challenge that remains in his thoughts long after your departure. Because most women attempt to dazzle, but those who genuinely create lasting impressions speak sparingly, yet with purpose. A vast distinction exists between a woman who reacts and one who selects her response. That distinction, though imperceptible, remains palpable, and men, particularly emotionally commanding ones, recognize it instantly. Stoicism instructs that we cannot govern external events, but we can determine how to interpret them, how to experience them, and how to proceed accordingly. This forms the basis of feminine emotional authority. It's not about stifling what you experience. It's about refining it, directing it, and transforming it into a serene force of attraction. Epictetus clarified in The Art of Living. It's not circumstances that affect you, but your reaction to them that counts. And that principle holds far greater worth in attraction than appears. Picture yourself on an encounter. He mentions something vague, something potentially offensive or bewildering. A reactive woman clarifies herself, justifies herself, or attempts to validate her position. But a stoic woman remains quiet momentarily, observes him, smiles mysteriously, then responds with a concise statement, showing she hasn't shifted from her core. That hesitation carries more weight than countless words. It's the delicate indication that she isn't subject to his words or actions. She doesn't yield to the instant. She commands it. And that dominance is sensed even without speech. Marcus Aurelius recorded in Meditations, "You possess authority over your thoughts, not external circumstances." Understand this, and you will discover power. In seduction, that power becomes something men find irresistible. A woman who doesn't waver, who doesn't compete, who doesn't plead, who knows when to speak, and when to allow silence to perform. Because sometimes attraction is born precisely from the unspoken. Whether you believe it or not, silence serves as a potent instrument in allure, instead of hastening to occupy every void. The Stoic woman watches, and when she speaks, she does so with substance, with direction, with intention, because she comprehends that not everything is achieved through explanation. Some things are achieved through patience. Jung also grasped this through profound psychology. In Symbols of Transformation, he described how the masculine unconscious is attracted to what it cannot completely possess, to what stimulates and awakens him, but doesn't immediately surrender itself. It's a psychological dance between the urge to control and the fascination with what remains independent. A woman who governs her emotions isn't frigid. She's formidable because her strength doesn't rest in declaring it, but in calmly implying it. She is the type of woman who creates emotional impressions not through her words, but through what she makes him experience. And that composure comes from self-reflection, from continuously questioning herself. Am I behaving from necessity, or from choice, from worry, or from assurance? A woman who exists from that space doesn't need to manipulate, doesn't need to pursue. Her simple presence, the way she observes, the tempo of her voice, already conveys something far stronger than any clothing or praise. Genuine feminine presence doesn't compete, doesn't attempt to satisfy, doesn't try to occupy spaces. It maintains itself like an internal foundation. And that center is magnetic because it's uncommon. And scarcity fascinates. Mystery doesn't rest in silence. It rests in knowing when not to reveal everything. When a woman applies Stoic principles, something transforms in her communication too. She no longer speaks to gratify. She speaks to unveil or to stimulate, but never to compensate for inadequacy. She doesn't over-explain. She doesn't rationalize her emotions. And when she permits herself to be vulnerable, she does so from choice, not from emotional excess. This is the distinction between a woman who stirs and a woman who transforms. One responds from the wish to be noticed, the other from the consciousness of what her presence already generates. That's why on this journey, emotional self-discipline is not suppression. It's transformation. It is the capacity to convert every emotion into something that serves your intention. If you experience desire, you channel it through your look. If you experience anger, you transform it into commanding silence. If you experience affection, you express it with grace, without hesitation. And that, dear woman, is strength. The type of strength that doesn't proclaim, that doesn't insist, that doesn't chase, but waits and motivates others to approach you. Carl Jung wrote in The Dynamics of the Unconscious, everything that annoys us about others can guide us to self-understanding. What if seduction isn't merely about the other, but about you? About how profoundly you can understand yourself and from there stimulate. Men sense it when they're with you. Perhaps they cannot articulate it, but they perceive it. And they are attracted not just to you, but to how they feel in your vicinity. Bewildered, thrilled, craving more. Because a woman who doesn't respond automatically, who doesn't get disturbed by any trigger, is a woman who becomes mysterious. And mystery seduces. There exists something more seductive than a flawless figure. A phrase uttered at precisely the right instant with the correct intention and the perfect tone. Emotional communication, the kind that doesn't need to declare to create impact, is the silent craft of attraction. A woman who masters implication doesn't seek validation. She speaks from her core. She says precisely enough. And what she doesn't express is even more compelling. Implication is what exists beneath the words. It's the energy you transmit when you communicate. And if there's one quality that Stoicism develops masterfully, it's this emotional precision behind every gesture. Seneca wrote, "The ultimate freedom is to be master of oneself." And when a woman speaks with emotional intention without anxiety or need, what she's truly conveying is, I am liberated. I don't need to ensnare you. I'm simply permitting you to witness me. Carl Jung, in The Psychology of the Transference, stated that in every human exchange, unconscious elements are projected. In other words, you're not just communicating, you're activating inner conditions in the other person. And if you understand how to employ that with elegance, you can make a man feel profoundly attracted without him comprehending why. A woman who masters her emotional communication doesn't reveal herself rashly, doesn't over-explain, doesn't need to share everything she experiences to be understood. Because when she looks, when she's quiet, when she slowly utters a phrase filled with implication, something within him is stirred. And that is what he doesn't forget. What makes a woman irresistible isn't what she expresses, It's what she makes him experience with what she expresses. Imagine you're before him. He anticipates you to behave like most, to laugh excessively, to attempt to please, to follow the pattern. But you don't. You speak with intervals, with a steady gaze, in a soft voice. And when you say something, you do it as though it were a secret only he merited to hear. That is emotional seduction. And Stoicism is the path that instructs you not to speak from anxiety, not to experience silence from unease, not to seek approval to prevent rejection. A Stoic woman communicates when she desires to express herself, not when she needs to occupy silence. And that distinction transforms everything. Jung stated in Psychological Types that every individual radiates a psychic force that influences the emotional atmosphere of others. And women with balanced energy, with measured language, awakens something profound in men. Respect, attraction, and most importantly, intrigue. Because a woman who doesn't expose everything about herself, who responds with carefully calculated ambiguity, becomes an enigma. An enigma is the nourishment of attraction. Now listen carefully. Enigma is not indifference. It's not about behaving aloof or uninterested. It's about dancing with what is expressed, about communicating emotionally without being transparent, about offering him a feeling he cannot identify. And that's precisely why he yearns to experience it repeatedly. Emotional communication comprises three essential components: a gentle, assured and deliberate tone, a fixed gaze with a hint of ambiguity, and purpose, not to satisfy, but to stir something within him. When you address a man, don't clarify everything. Don't provide him directions. Offer him clues. Brief phrases with emotional significance that leave possibilities open, because what is completely offered is no longer coveted. Become like poetry that cannot be grasped all at once, but is experienced from the opening verse. A single sentence spoken in a hushed voice following a pause can create more influence than an entire discourse, particularly when charged with purpose and implication. For instance, instead of declaring, "I really admire you," you could simply observe him and state, "There's something about you I find difficult to dismiss." That statement doesn't praise him directly, but it makes him ponder. It creates an internal inquiry, and that is compelling. Most women attempt to earn affection by speaking more, revealing more, offering more. But what's genuinely seductive is offering less with greater purpose. As Marcus Aurelius recorded in Meditations, the caliber of your thoughts establishes the caliber of your existence. The same applies to your expressions. The emotional caliber of your statements determines the category of man you will draw. Communicate as if each word contained a deliberately selected feeling. Not to persuade him of something, but to make him experience something he cannot articulate. And if there's something men never dismiss, it's how they felt with you. Not because of what you accomplished, but because of what you triggered through your language, your energy, your look. A woman who masters emotional communication never needs to inquire, "Do you care for me?" She understands it, and she validates it with silence, with brief statements, with extended pauses where attraction quietly develops. And if the instant feels appropriate, you can also employ gentle declarations with dual-layered emotional purpose. Something like, "I don't understand what it is about you, but my instincts do." That statement doesn't require clarification. The impression lingers, and so does the feeling. Jung in The Ego and the Unconscious explains that the most compelling experiences are not instantly comprehended. They change us from within. And that is precisely what occurs when a woman speaks from her emotional core. She doesn't clarify herself. She continues to resonate within him. Because genuine strength isn't in expressing everything. It's in understanding when to express it, how to express it, and most importantly, when not to express anything. That is the transformation of implication. That is the sophistication of emotional mastery. And that dear woman is the essence of someone memorable. There are statements that are not merely words. They are our emotional catalysts opening pathways to the masculine unconscious. When uttered from the core of an emotionally conscious woman with self-discipline and strategically delicate intent, they can imprint a man's emotional memory permanently. These statements aren't spoken to persuade or dazzle. They are spoken like someone casting a pebble into water, knowing the waves will eventually reach the bottom. They don't pursue an instant response. They intend to create an impression that over time becomes irresistible. The first statement is, "Darling, there's something about you that disrupts my equilibrium. I don't even understand what it is." It's a revelation that seems vulnerable, but in truth, it's filled with strength. Because what you're actually conveying is that he has an influence on you, one that even you can't completely grasp. That makes him captivating. In the masculine unconscious, the wish to feel unique is triggered to be the sole one capable of disturbing the stability of a woman who is typically strong, centered, and calm. That emotional uncertainty draws him in because it's not a love confession, nor a direct praise. It's an unsolved enigma. This statement shouldn't be uttered carelessly. It only functions if it's delivered slowly, like a thought that escapes unintentionally. Following a mutual silence, following a gaze maintained a few moments longer than anticipated. You don't express this through text or early in a connection. You express it when the emotional tension is already present, when you recognize there's an electric current between you. Carl Jung wrote in The Ego and the Unconscious that every significant encounter is founded on a projection. This statement is exactly that, a projection of strength onto him. You're offering him something without offering it completely. And that feeling not possessing complete control is intoxicating. The second statement is, "You have a method of captivating me, and you don't even recognize it." This statement contains something almost teasing. It's not flattery. It's not submission. It's a method of revealing his influence without making him feel entirely in command. You let him understand that he affects you, that he stirs something in you, but you also suggest that he's not even conscious of it. You make him feel influential, but you also provoke him. You awaken his wish to discover more, to demonstrate he could affect you even further if he chose. Tone is essential here. It shouldn't sound practiced or manipulated. It should emerge in a moment of amusement, of playfulness, of emotional intimacy. Spoken with a slight smile, like someone delivering a gentle challenge. This statement accomplishes something uncommon. It emotionally destabilizes him because you offer something and withdraw it simultaneously. In Symbols of Transformation, Jung wrote that what does not become aware appears as destiny. And that's precisely what this statement achieves. You surface something he didn't realize was occurring. And once he understands, he can't stop contemplating it. It's not that you lose concentration. It's that now he needs to verify it. Don't express it by message. Don't employ it to flatter him if you're not emotionally grounded. This statement only functions if you know you're engaging from your center, not from the necessity to gain attention. The third statement is, "If I kissed you right now, I know you wouldn't be able to resist." You're not requesting a kiss. You're not even stating you will kiss him. You're making a declaration. You're announcing an inner conviction. You're assuming emotional command of the moment. And you make him visualize it. You make him sense it, but you don't act. This statement must be spoken with presence, with a firm gaze, in a quiet voice, following a conversation filled with emotional depth on an evening charged with tension. Don't express it unless you're rooted in yourself. Don't express it if you can't maintain the silence that follows afterward, because that silence is what generates the actual impact. It should not be spoken playfully. It's not a rehearsed line. It's a blend of conviction and play, of controlled desire and emotional mastery. Because what this statement achieves is not provoking an action. It provokes an image. And as Jung explained in Man and His Symbols, an emotion connected to an image is more compelling than 1,000 logical words. When you express this to a man, you construct a scene in his mind. And that scene returns to him when he's alone, when he remembers, when he seeks you without understanding why. These statements function because they don't reveal everything, because they don't explain, because they are emotionally ambiguous. And ambiguity, what cannot be clearly identified, activates the deepest levels of masculine desire. What these statements share in common is not just their construction, it's the energy behind them. If you employ them from insecurity, from the need to be appreciated, they lose all their strength. But if you employ them from your center, knowing you don't need anyone but choosing to ignite emotion, then they become artistry. A woman can memorize statements. Anyone can recite them. But only a woman with emotional presence can make those statements echo inside him for days, weeks, even years. Because what truly remains in memory is not the statement itself, but the sensation it left behind. And that sensation is constructed through nuances. A fixed gaze, a hesitation before speaking, a slow breath following saying something, the precise tone that leaves him uncertain whether it was a challenge, a revelation, or a fantasy. Jung spoke of feminine archetypes as inner forces that function beyond conscious awareness. And a woman who is aligned with her emotional strength, to her tranquility, to her command of the instant embodies those archetypes. She transforms beyond a woman. She becomes a symbol. And symbols, as he stated, are not comprehended. They are experienced. And what is profoundly experienced is pursued. So this is not merely about the statements. It's about you, the woman who expresses them, your tone, your core, your quiet strength. It's about no longer existing in the energy of pursuing, but in the energy of inspiring, allowing the words to be channels of your magnetism, not your deficiency. These statements aren't quick fixes. They are instruments. But you are the flame that ignites them. And when you learn to communicate with purpose from your composure, from your gaze, you stop being just another woman. You become an emotional journey. And men don't dismiss journeys. They pursue what they can't rationalize. They crave what makes them feel distinctive, challenged, and emotionally stirred. That is the secret. It's not what you express. It's where you're communicating from. And that dear one is what makes you memorable. A woman can possess presence, intelligence, even emotional beauty, but if she behaves from the wrong space, the enchantment dissolves. Attraction is not merely about what you do. It's about the energy behind what you do. And this is where many women unconsciously undermine their own strength. One of the most frequent errors is behaving from scarcity, from the urgency to be appreciated, to be selected, to feel acknowledged. That energy is detectable. It's not voiced, but it's conveyed. A movement that appears too desperate. A message dispatched without reflection. A statement expressed just to verify something. And when he perceives that necessity, his attraction begins to diminish. Because men don't crave what pursues them. They crave what challenges them emotionally. What stirs them without pleading. Emotional worry, no matter how delicate, contaminates the vibration. And attraction needs room to flourish. Another frequent error is employing emotionally compelling statements without grasping the timing, without caring for the tone, or without maintaining the emotional energy those statements demand. Expressing there's something about you that disrupts my equilibrium through a text with an emoji, or as if it's a jest, is like casting poetry into emptiness. It loses all its influence. It's not the statement that seduces, it's the instant, the hesitation, the tension surrounding it. Using these statements without purpose or emotional mastery not only drains them of significance, it transforms them into banalities, into copied lines. And a perceptive man senses the distinction between a woman who embodies what she expresses and one who simply repeats it, hoping for an outcome. It's also an error to constantly pursue attention, attempting to maintain his interest by responding immediately, sending subtle messages constantly, continually testing his interest. That generates emotional exhaustion. Masculine attraction needs room, enigma, an emotional interval where he can long for, visualize, and rebuild her energy in his thoughts. If you're too available, too reachable, too transparent, there's no space for him to advance. And if he doesn't move emotionally toward you, there's no tension. And without tension, there's no attraction. Another devastating error is mistaking authenticity with emotional excess. Displaying vulnerability doesn't mean revealing everything. Doesn't mean weeping on the first encounter. Doesn't mean discussing your wounds to establish connection. It means sharing by selection, not from the injury. A man may experience sympathy for an emotionally overwhelmed woman, but not attraction. Appeal doesn't emerge from emotional turmoil. It emerges from balance. A woman who experiences deeply, but selects when, how, and how much to reveal. That is strength. That is emotional magnetism. A woman who reveals herself with consciousness generates respect and attraction. The one who overflows without boundaries only creates bewilderment. And finally, one of the most delicate yet most damaging errors. Speaking excessively, occupying every silence, clarifying what you experience, rationalizing every emotion. Silence is not your adversary. It's your companion. It's in silence that tension is built. Your composure is disclosed, and your presence communicates louder than any expression. Speaking without pause, rhythm, or emotional guidance is like music with no beat. It wearies, it drains, and it leaves no space for him to hear the most crucial thing, how he feels about himself when he's with you. That's why every error made from worry, from necessity, from rashness sabotages your capacity to generate authentic attraction. You don't need to be flawless. You just need to be grounded, to occupy your presence, to employ your words deliberately, and to always recall what a man genuinely craves is a woman who understands how to make him experience something he can't rationalize. There is a type of strength that requires no words, no force, no demand. It's the strength of a woman who has ceased attempting to be appreciated and started completely inhabiting herself. Who no longer seeks to be selected because she has selected herself. Who doesn't pursue love because she has become an experience of self-love so profound that the genuine is drawn to her and the shallow disappears. Stoicism is not indifference. It's controlled fire. It's understanding that you possess emotions, desires, impulses, but that you guide them. They don't guide you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Perfect serenity consists in the proper arrangement of the mind in your own inner realm." And when a woman arranges her inner world, the outer world begins to respond differently. She is no longer the one who pursues. She is the one who inspires movement in others. Carl Jung stated in The Dynamics of the Unconscious that the process of individuation, the journey to becoming who you genuinely are, requires integrating the shadows, emotions, and impulses without rejecting them. A woman who masters her emotional expression does not do it through a facade, but through integration. She doesn't deny her desire. She transforms it into a gaze. She doesn't suppress her emotion. She transforms it into a pause. She doesn't behave from fear. She behaves from her center. A woman like that doesn't require strategies. She is the strategy. Her method of being present, of speaking sparingly but with purpose. Her capacity to remain quiet without losing presence. Her emotional communication filled with implication, pause, and inner rhythm creates a magnetic field that cannot be rationalized, only experienced. And that is the ultimate secret of profound attraction. It's not what you display. It's what you make someone experience. Men don't fall in love with a woman because she attempts. They fall because when they are with her, they feel different about themselves, more vibrant, more desirous, more inspired to discover what lies behind her composure. So every time you question what to express, how to behave, what strategy to employ, remember this. There are no enchanted statements if there is no enchanted woman behind them. And the enchanted woman is not born by chance. She is born from inner development, from the daily choice not to react, not to dramatize, not to pursue what doesn't align with her value. She understands that what is destined for her will arrive, because her energy summons it without pleading, because she has developed a presence so powerful, so refined, so genuine, that only what is authentic dares to remain. Genuine seduction is not dramatic. It is stoic. It is emotionally intelligent. It is purposeful, and above all, it is discriminating. It is that woman, not the one who dazzles with intensity, but the one who creates an impression with her composure. Not the one who amazes, but the one who transforms. Not the one who needs to be pursued, but the one whose simple presence leaves behind a question no one can stop attempting to answer. And if this discussion reminded you of the strength that was always within you, subscribe, because what's approaching next goes even deeper.